go. So, what we are going to cover today is just a short introduction to what you're going to be going through and using for the duration of the course. So we're going to create a project. I'm going to create some folders just so you sort of see how you can work a bit more tidy. I'm going to import some assets. By assets, I mean, in this case, it's going to be one logo and one texture. Logo is going to be, anyone heard about the And Action Festival? Yeah? Yeah, so I do a lot of I do all the graphics for the motion graphics for the And Action Festival, so I have all the assets there, so it's sort of convenient to just use those because they're all the logos, everything we used from that before. We're gonna create some compositions, and I don't mean like an image composition. Like composition is like another word for a folder that holds all your animation and everything. And one sort of motion graphics piece can usually just involves many compositions. It's just that instead of animating every single scene within sort of one composition, you do more and then you put them after each other. So it's just tidier and yeah, just more efficient and tidy. We're gonna add some layers, just like in Photoshop. A good thing about After Effects is that if you know a bit of Photoshop, you're sort of gonna get After Effects as well, because it's similar. It's like Premiere as well, because it's all Adobe stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's the same. Some things are different, but it sort of makes sense after a while. We're gonna learn how to utilize some blend layers, and blend layers are like, you know what they are, like in Photoshop. So you can blend, like I could put this to soft light, for instance, the text layer, so it's not white. Multiply, then it goes away due to the fact that it's white on a black background, but overlay. So that's sort of blend layer modes. You can make some really nice looking textures, and you can blend textures into your clean graphics, and that's gonna make it look a bit different, so I'm gonna go through that as well. We're gonna look at parenting. You might know what parenting is. Yes? No? From the TD class, constraining stuff to an object. Yeah, same stuff basically. Parent. So parent is basically, you have a parent and you have a child, or you have more children, and the child always follows the parent. So it's just like making one object, and we're gonna use something called a null, and that doesn't show up on a render. So you can see it in your viewport, but when you render, it's not going to be there. And the nice thing is that you can have all your animation, you can have your assets parented to the null, and you can do all the animation on the null, so that the asset stays in the world position that it has when it comes into the software, and it doesn't have a lot of keys on it. And we're going to animate the asset using the null. So we're going to move stuff, rotate stuff, scale, and then move something along a path. And then we're going to try and add effects to an asset. And then at the end, we're going to make it pretty, which is just, I'm going to do a few things that I do to some animations to make it look a bit more different and not so, I don't know, just text on background or logo on a plain background. It's just simple little things you can do to make it pop out a bit. Okay, so I have to open After Effects. See, yeah. Taking forever today. It is opening, it's just opening on the other screen. I'm just gonna make this a new project so we go through the gist of it all. I like just saving the minute I've made a project just because it's nice. This is already linked to the folder I want because I did this yesterday as well, so I will call this intro class. Actually, I'm gonna do the date. 2016 10/26. So that's saved. Neat. And then there's different ways of doing it. You can go to file, import file, for instance, or you can import multiple files. You can right click and import, but you can also just double click within the gray area. And then I already have, so if you look at my folder structure here, I have a folder that I've called assets, which is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to take in the final and action, which is the logo, and the paper texture that I have. So for paper textures, or it doesn't really go to just textures in general if you want to use them. If you go to Google, and let's do paper texture just for the simplicity of the example here. What's nice to do is if you go to search tools, make sure the size is set to large, just because you don't want to use any textures that are like tiny or images that are tiny, because you are going to output this in a fairly big format, and it's only going to be shown on like TVs and so stuff like that. So you want to get something that's high quality. So just make sure that all Google searches are just on large. And if it doesn't add up with the 1920 1080, for instance, that doesn't really matter within After Effects. If you're not, you can always just scale this down and then make it fit your composition. So that's even just gonna, as long as you don't scale stuff up. If you drag it in and it's just tiny on screen and you have to scale it like a huge amount to get it up, that's not a good thing. Then the quality goes away as well. So I'm gonna go down here to the create new folder, and I'm gonna make one called asset, and I'm actually gonna call that assets. If you hit enter when something's selected, then you rename. I'm just gonna drop these two in there straight away. Need my list over on the other screen, so I know what I'm actually meant to do here. So if you wanted, for instance, sound or something like that, you could do one obviously called sound, and you could do more of those. So next up, I'm going to right click here and go to new composition. This pops up. I'm going to call, normally I would call this main comp. So it would be like the comp that all my other comps go into. But I'm gonna make more than one now, so I'm actually gonna just make one that I call move, because that's the first thing I'm gonna do. And in the composition settings, I just clicked OK because I've set this already. But 1920 by 1080 square pixels, and frame rate is probably gonna be like 30 FPS or maybe 29.97. So that one or that one when you open, so just put it to 25 because that's better. Duration is 30 seconds. I'm not gonna use 30 seconds. I'm good with 5, I think. Yeah, something like that. I'm not gonna do anything that's sort of a long duration. I'm just gonna do some examples here. So go to the assets folder. I'm just gonna drag the asset in, and there's the logo in the scene, and they all come with attributes like this. So you have an anchor point, which is the middle. You can see the logo moving around that little sort of aim looking thing in the middle. So if I sort of want to have the anchor point here, just means I can rotate around that point, rather than the original, which is sort of you rotate the logo around that. So the anchor point is actually quite powerful. If you wanna, I don't know, we can move the anchor point to the, you would do this in 3D and stuff as well, so you have the anchor point, it's like the pivot point really. Have that there, for instance. And you have this button down here with the cube symbol, which is actually a way to make stuff 3D. It's not really true 3D, obviously, because this is a flat graphic. It doesn't come with all the sides and everything, but you can still sort of make it work. So this could open like a door, or it could just flip around like this, and when it comes back here, it could be another logo. So you could, at one point, say, for instance, here, when it goes almost, you can't see it. If you were to swap out this logo with something else, you could bring it up as something different. That's one way of sort of utilizing the 3D. But you can also obviously move the anchor point back, make it 3D, because normally you just get the position, you get it in the called the X and the Y axis, up and down, left to right, but you can also, if you get 3D, you can actually move it in the C position. So you actually move it towards the camera and away from the camera. But we're not going to work with the 3D on today, but you might want to add that to your animations. If you want to have something that sort of gets some depth in the picture, you can have stuff that's actually behind other stuff, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna create a new null object. I like renaming stuff straight away. Logo null. So that's gonna be my, I'm actually, this doesn't, if I just change this to logo, it's not gonna change the actual name of the file, so it's not anything destructive. It's just, I wanna call it logo, so because that's shorter. And the null, you can see, is just goes straight in the middle, which is really nice. And then I will take, where it says parent here, I take the logo and I parent it to the null. And I will actually animate with the null, not the logo itself. Yeah, I start using shortcuts a lot, so I need to tell you about those. So yeah, you would click this arrow and you would get this and you would get that. But you have shortcuts for all of these things. So you have A for anchor point, P for position, S for scale, R for rotation, T for opacity. So you're gonna get them after a while, that they sort of, you just start using the shortcuts. But it's sort of, T for opacity doesn't make that much sense, but R for rotation, S for scale, and P for position, they're sort of simple to remember. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab this. If I start moving it, I just hold down the mouse and I just start dragging. It's super slow, so if I hold shift, I can actually move it out really fast. And then I'm gonna hit this little stopwatch down here to set a key. So you can see on the timeline here, I've set a key, that little diamond looking shape there. And I'm gonna say that around 1 second, I'm gonna move this to 960, which is half of 1920, so that's the middle. And if I hit space now, it goes through. Yeah, it moves. And if you're doing an animation and you're sort of sick of it playing through the whole thing, you can grab this work area end here and actually drag that down, and it will only give it a second and it'll do it. It'll only do the, it's meant to do. Why are you not doing it today? There you go. So it's only playing just the animation, and then you can sort of leave that out here so you can sort of see that it stops, and then you can fiddle with the animation over and over and tweak and that sort of stuff without actually playing through the whole composition every time. You can also do this with, you can hit B for beginning and N for like nils for and that's the end. So I like using just hitting B and then do N here. And that gives me the same stuff as actually grabbing it and dragging it all the way down. And yeah, so another thing we have, which you might start using it after a while, but in the beginning it's a bit sort of confusing. But if I select a position here and I go here to my graph editor, you can see the position change. The red here represents the x-axis that it's moved, so it's moving linearly. So there's not really any it's just constant A to B with no change in speed or that sort of it's just like linear, like a robot basically. It's a robotic movement. So if I make these easy E's, you can see the curve changes into that type of curve, more organic, more smooth motion. And you can see my keys down at the timeline has also changed to these different looking elements. There's a shortcut for doing that as well, so I use that normally. But you can see already that the motion is different than if I just select these. I want to take them back, I can hold Control, select both keys, and then left mouse click, then it's going to go back to being linear. And if you play that, that's sort of dull and boring, so you can select them again, but you don't have to go to the graph editor. You can actually right click them, key from assistant, and easy ease, and then you can play it again and see that it's smoother, it's nicer to look at, and I like using easy ease keys. That just makes everything better. There's a shortcut for that as well, which is F9. I'm not going to click it because I did it yesterday and I stopped my recording, so but you can do F9 as well, so just remember that. Yeah, so that's the first, just moving stuff. So I'm not gonna do one composition. I'm actually gonna do more compositions and just have move and scale and all the things we're gonna do. So I'm gonna duplicate the composition, and I do that by hitting Control D, and I get a move 2 up here. Change that to rotate. And I'm gonna just double click that, and then I have the rotate. So you can see the animation is still in here. So I'm gonna move this to around this area where the logo is still in the middle, and then get rid of the keys. And then you see there's no animation, because if I actually delete it over here, then it's out of the frame. And if I go to my position here, it says it's a position 0, so I can have to do that, and this doesn't add up, and the null, and I'm not going to get it back to where I want it. So just make sure you have it over at 0, because the null is controlling it now. So the attributes on the logo is actually 0, 0, because everything's controlled by null. So that's why you just go to the end point where you want it and delete the keys, and don't start at the beginning if that's in the wrong position. Okay, so R for rotation. Let's give it a second before we do something. I'm gonna key it here. Actually, I'm gonna move that a bit. I'm just holding that key and just moving it. And then say, for instance, here I want it to rotate. So if I want to rotate it 360 degrees, I can do that this way, or I can actually, you can see it says 1 there. So I could actually just hit 1 on this, and it actually does 360 degrees. So it's 1 time the rotation. And the other thing here is that if you at some point, if you key it in the beginning and you move here and you do a change here, that's actually keyed. It automatically keys for you. So don't click the stopwatch, because everything went away and all the animations deleted. So don't just click the stopwatch the 1 time and then just move, because AfterEffects is just going to key for you. But if you want to delete your animation, you can obviously just hit that button. And there's also a way of setting a key. If you don't have the key on the first frame, you can put it to 10, and you can just click the stopwatch, but you can keep clicking keys over here, for instance, if you want to add a key, and then you can set the value. But in theory, you can just put 1 here if you want to do it 360 degrees. So that spins. So what I like doing is actually implement some animation principles here to make it more interesting. So I'm gonna extend this a tiny bit, and then I'm not gonna have it go 360. I'm actually gonna have it go further, so maybe like to like 15 degrees more. And then I'm holding control and the right arrow, and that's how you go frame by frame back and forth, is using the arrows, holding control at the same time. So I'm gonna just randomly count now, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say for instance it goes back to 355. Hit enter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm doing more frames for every time I do something, because I want it to slow down. So the more keys you have in between, the longer it takes. So the animation will be slower. Then take it to, whoops, not 2, 1, plus 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm gonna do it at 3, 5, 8, 0, and then maybe here I'll do it at 360. So let's make sure there's no 1 where it shouldn't be 1. Yeah, there is here. So that needs to be set to 0. And that needs to be set there. Yeah. Select everything. Easy ease. Try that again. So see what I'm doing there? I'm just sort of, I'm not stopping it like just on 360 degrees. I'm sort of, it's called an overshoot. So it's like, it has so much momentum that it actually goes further, and then it stops, and then it comes back a bit, and it sort of just settles in. And that's, if you add that to the animation, it's going to look like, I don't know, I think 5 times better than if you just stop everything at 1 key, and that's sort of, because that's just moving stuff from A to B. It's boring. You have to make it more interesting. So having that little thing there makes it better, and you can sort of change the timing just by selecting the keys and maybe moving stuff. Just make sure that when you have something settling, it sort of needs to be not so, it's like this spacing is the same, so it needs to take, because it comes around really fast and then it goes too far, and then it goes a bit back and it goes the other way again. It's not going to do that really fast. It's going to do that slower for every time it settles down. It's like if you spin one of those, I don't know what they're called, toys that kids have, sort of slowly stop spinning as well. So it's just implementing that. It's going to make everything more interesting and more pleasant to look at. And it's also about this stuff we talked about, keeping interest, so it just doesn't stop, it doesn't die completely. I need to call that rotate and duplicate that again, and then call this, just hitting enter, call that scale. Go here, make sure it's there, at least it's at, I'm actually gonna reset that to 1, so it's not 0, so it's not rotated at all. And then let's do some scaling. Control S to save, important. S for scale. I'm gonna actually scale this down to 0, so it goes away. I'm gonna start at 0 on scale because it's gone, and then say here, I'm just gonna take it to 100 first to see how that feels. Yeah, so that's too slow, so I'm gonna move that further. Yeah, it's okay. I don't want it to be at 100. I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just doing it with scale values, so I'm gonna put it to like 115, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, The numbers doesn't really matter. I just have to keep a mental note that I'm doing 7 frames now. I need to do more next time, and then more the next time. So let's do 6 actually. 115. I'm gonna take it down to. If I'm overshooting at 115%, so that's 115% of the size. I'm not gonna take it down by more than 15%. Because that could be like an endless loop. If it was going 15 over, 15 under, 15 over, 15 under, it needs to be 15 over, like 10 under, and then 5 over, and then 2 under. And then, does that make any sense? But it's just decrease all the time. So make sure you keep the numbers in your head. So yeah, I was doing 115. I was doing 6 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna just do. Let's do 90. See how that works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 105. No, that's too much. 103. Actually, I'm gonna take it down from 90 to like 92. Just to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 98. 9. 101 just to be funny. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then timing here, I have no clue if it's gonna work. I just do numbers and then I know the spacing and then I'll move everything back if it's too slow. 100. I'm just gonna do these ones easy straight away. See, that's more interesting than just like if it, yeah, we can actually do that. I can do it like this and then put the end here. Actually you can't see it stick. That's sort of, it's nothing, it's boring. And this is more interesting. It's still going up to, you can still see the logo after like 10 frames like in the original, but you at least get more action going on here. What I can also do here, I can extend this. We can do an example where we can actually include some let's include some opacity just to go a bit crazy. So the opacity, I can do the opacity on the, if I have the logo up here, I can do the opacity on the null, but the opacity on the null is 0, so you can't really affect the logo in any way. So we would have to do that on the logo instead than actually on the null, because you can't control that. So the opacity is sort of the thing you have to do. Then you have to have keys on the null to move it or scale it or rotate it, but then opacity you have to do on the actual asset itself. So I'm gonna hit U for university, and that means if I had rotation keys and position keys here as well, they will come up as well. It's just all keys on an object will come up if you hit U. So I'm gonna hit T on the logo for opacity. I'm gonna say key it to 100% here, and then here I'm just gonna take it all the way to 0. And I want to fade it off at the end, similar to this. Instead of just doing key here and key it down, I'm actually just going to copy the keys, Control C. They're going to, when I hit Control V, they're going to paste wherever this blue line is, they're going to land there. So I'll actually move them one back so they go at the same time at scale. But then you can see it's doing it opposite of what I want, so we actually have to switch these two around. So that 0 is here and 100 is there. So now we add some opacity as well. Logo just pops up and then fades off. A lot of the things some clients might want could just be this, just like a little thing on their logo, and then just fade it off, get the website up and whatever. But obviously, if you put the effort in to make the animation more interesting, like here, where it overshoots, than just having the logo pop up and then fade off, then that's gonna be worth it, I think. Okay, so I'm gonna duplicate the move actually, because I don't want all the opacity stuff. Call this logo along path. I just did that because I had a lot of keys on the opacity and stuff I don't want to get rid of, so I'm gonna hit U, go here, get rid of those keys, and then I'm gonna make something. I can make a background for this, for instance. So if I hit right click here and go to new and solid, solid is basically just a solid background, I guess, or that cover ups the background, so you can change the colors to, if you want to do orange, you get an orange, and in this works in the same way as Photoshop. So this solid is now occluding everything because it's on top, so I need that to be at the bottom, and it's the same color obviously, so you can't see the logo. So that was a stupid choice I made. A lot of people now would just go, oh, I have to make a new solid, because it doesn't have, it has transform, but it doesn't have anywhere you can change the color. But you can actually, if you go to layer and solid settings, so you don't have to make a new one every time. You can just, I'll make it like a dark gray-ish thing, and then I can actually see my logo. And then when I have the background here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make something called a shape layer. So the shape layer is, I can just use this pen tool. Shape layers are like, they can be rectangles, and up here you can have like rectangles. If you hold, let's see, I have to close this one. Come on. Yeah. You have a rectangle, you have a rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, and stars. So that's like some shape layers, but it also creates shape layers by using the pen, so you can actually make the shapes yourself. But the reason I put a solid in here is because if you have a solid layer or a background layer or any image, it could be the logo even, and you have that selected down here, so that's selected and you don't notice, and you go to the pen tool like I did to make the shape, it's actually gonna make a mask on your background. And a mask works by, in this way, it's taking away everything around. So that's, if I hit M for mask, if I do subtract, it's gonna subtract anything within the mask and leave everything outside the mask. And that's really useful. You're gonna use it for a lot of things. I'm gonna use it later in this tutorial as well. It's just for the purpose that I'm doing it now. I actually want it to be a shape rather than a mask. So just make sure you don't have anything selected. So just click down here anywhere, so and nothing selected, and then it's the same tool, but this time it's gonna give me this blue shape layer. It most likely will come on as a fill as well, like this. I don't want that because I just want to see the line here. So if you click the word fill, this pops up and you can actually switch that off like that. And then within this, I'm gonna have the shape here. I'm gonna have the pen tool active. So if it has a pen symbol with a plus on it, that's adding a little point here that you can use to, yeah, make sure you hit the line actually, that you can use to sort of change the path. So I'm just gonna add in some, because I'm not really sure how many I actually need here to do. I'm just gonna try and do a loop of some kind. Gonna add one here, add one there. That should be enough. Probably way too many on one side. But this is a very sort of, like we talked about the curves, a very linear movement. I don't want it to be linear. So while I have the pen tool, I'm just gonna hold. If you have the black one, that's select, so you can drag stuff around. But if you hold Alt, you get this different looking arrow, almost like a point of an arrow, I guess, and then you can actually hold that down the left mouse button and you can make this into a Bezier curve, which is going to make everything rounder. So now I don't need that point, and I don't really need this either. I can get that from this one just by altering that. I can get this one, then I don't need the one in the middle. If I select them, I can grab these little handles here and I can change it into nice looking little shape. Then I do the same up here. Probably don't need that one. I do need this one. Bit too big. But the nice thing here is, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the logo go along this path. So the nice thing about doing the legwork here, about sitting and just drawing it out, is that whatever the curve looks like is what your animation is going to be doing. So you're almost like you're literally drawing out the path of movement. So you want this to look good. If you're going to have a logo following some sort of path, make sure you put in the groundwork and make the path look really nice, because otherwise the motion is going to look like crap as well. So have my path, have my null there. I'm gonna go into the shape layer, so in here and then into contents, into shape, into path 1, and then click this down here. I hit Control C. I have to go to the null, hit P for position. I have to have that selected, and I hit. Make sure your time slider is all the way at 0 because I want it to start at 0, and then I hit Control V. And then the logo is already parented to null. I think the logo is too big, so I'm gonna, for the sake of this example, I'm gonna make it smaller. And you can see when I have the null selected that it has actually put in a path here. So I'm gonna turn the shape layer off now because I don't want to see that. I don't want to see anything here. Extend this out here, and that does a loopy loop. It's very powerful, because I'm not really doing any of the animation, it just did it for me. I can change it now, I can alter it, I can grab one of these points. The minute you grab one, and if you just grab it, these are in the middle here, the little round dots are called rove keys, which means the first and the first here and the last key there are actual keys. If I take this and I drag it, you can see the ones in the middle, they just adapt. This wouldn't happen if you set the keys. Then you would move this key and the other ones would stay. But these actually update according to the middle. You could potentially, if you wanted like a pause up here, for instance, you could go to that point and like around there, and you can just like offset it. Maybe it needs to go there faster. So it will go faster in the beginning and then slower. So you can alter them. Or you could just leave them and you can make sure they're all easy ease like that. And then the animation is a bit more smooth. And then you work on the timing, obviously. But if you wanted to pause something or hold something for longer, you can always grab a key and just offset them like that. But it's gonna... What usually happens is that After Effects doesn't really understand how to do the animation there, because there's two keys with different values. So you might have then to go into the graph editor and clean some stuff up. But we're not going to take it that far today. Not expecting to see that. I just want to see that you can actually get something constrained to a path and actually make it move. Yes. So that is that. I'm happy with this. Then let's try to do something with an effect on. Again, just duplicating another comp. Let's see, effect. Go to this, get rid of those. So for effects, you have them up here, or you can click the layer and right click and then just go to effects, and there's like a ton of stuff here that you can try. What I want to see is that I just want you to to try a lot of these, like, and fail miserably and get something right. But it's just about testing everything. And then if you find a cool effect that maybe you most likely remember sort of what it's called. So if I want to do like a wipe or something, I just type, sorry, W, wipe here, and I get all the different types that they have. And we can do a radial wipe. I just drag it from there and onto the logo. And then you can see transition completion is here at 0. And then it's 100% transition. So that could be a transition you want to do for logo. What's cool here as well is that if you put this to 1%, I could say that for this logo it would be nice if it actually started sort of there, maybe 31. So it sort of starts at one of the openings in the clapper. And you could just key this there, hit U so I get the keys up, and then 100, and I can actually reverse them so it goes from nothing and up. So that's one way of just adding an effect to the logo. One that I like to do that I'm going to use for my example is just type light. I'm not going to go through all the effects because that would take forever. I just want you to start messing about with different effects, really. So let's see. I'm going to use CC Light Burst 2.5, I think, because that's really cool. The intensity I'm not going to mess too much with because it actually blows out the color of the logo and everything. So I'm going to leave that at 100. What I am going to work with, though, is the ray length because that's pretty cool. I'm just going to drag that up to like 275, for instance. Key that there, hit U again so I can see where the keys are, and then maybe here I'll take it down to minus 50. So it's actually 0 is obviously nothing, so I'm going to take it down to minus 50. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to take it up to like 20. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then down to 0. And then I'm actually gonna add a bit of scale to this at the same time on the null, so that it sort of maybe even start it a bit bigger here, and then down here it's at minus, so maybe put it to like 90. Might actually be too much with 90. I'm gonna do 95. Bit up, 102, and then down to 100. Get all the keys, ease them, and fingers crossed. Yeah, it's not perfect. This is where you would tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, obviously. But it's like just a different way of using it. It could be I don't know, it could be something you could use for an animation, or you could just have like background elements that has this effect on, because it's sort of, it's a cool way of using an asset in a different way, because you make just a graphic and After Effects just uses the light burst and the rays to just make it look sci-fi cool, I don't know, something. Yeah. I could tweak this forever because I kind of end up doing that if I'm by myself, but I'm not going to do that now because that would be more boring than it already is. Okay, so let's do that one again. Let's call this Make It Pretty. So again, get rid of keys. You don't have to do this, obviously. You can make a new composition and import all your assets every single time. It's just that it's faster doing it this way. So what I want to do here is I'm just I'm not gonna animate something, I'm just gonna sort of show you what it could look like, what an animation could look like with background and blend modes and that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna go for bluish because I like blue, and the logo likes blue because it's complementary. It's nice, just like holding this menu sort of over so I can see the logo at the same time, so I can sort of get something that would work. Yeah, let's try that. Obviously put it under. Sorry, perfectionist. Doesn't look nice. Actually move this over here so I can see what I'm doing. Meh. Yes, better. And I need to go back into here. I'm gonna make also one called comps, just so I can take all these and just move them, because then it's tidier. I'm gonna go into my assets. I'm gonna bring in that texture that I had. I can put it all the way on the top actually. And if you see now, this is super big, but it doesn't really matter if it's super big. I can scale it down. See what it does at 50. That's pretty much, as long as make sure that these sort of save frames around here that sort of show you the layer size aren't smaller than the comp size, so they need to be bigger than, like, everything around here is nothing. Like whatever you, when you hit render, whatever's inside this square is what's gonna come out. So make sure that it covers the entire screen. And then we can actually utilize some blend modes. But yeah, automatically I'm clicking here where it says parent, but that's because I haven't gone down here. By default this is locked down, so you go to where it says expand or collapse, and then my blend mode is here. So same as in Photoshop, I can have this add to the animation, I can have it as an overlay. What's cool is if you look at the logo now, it's got texture to it as well. It's changing the color quite a lot though, but you can change that back with opacity and stuff, and recolor stuff at the end. Or you could not really care that it changed the colors that much, but that's up to you. If stuff is getting really slow and you know what you're meant to do, you can always go in here and like take down the quality of stuff. So it's set to auto now where it says half, so full quality is here. So then you can see it a bit better, and then half, I usually work at half or third because I don't care about the final look until the end. So I'm not going to animate at full quality because it's just slower. But this is sort of a light scene, so we can use full for that. And now it's obviously blending everything, but I kind of just wanted to blend the background, not the logo itself. So I'm putting it, now you can see it's not affecting the logo, it's only affecting the background. Another thing you can notice is if I put it at the top, it's adding to everything here that's not like a constant value, that has like uneven numbers. So if you watch the info up here and I mouse over, it says the RGB values, they're all changing and they're different and whatever. But if I go to white, it's 255, 255, 255. Blend modes are never going to affect anything that's 255, 255, 255. Or 000, like black. It's not going to work. So if you want the white to be affected, you actually have to go in and change it to be not 255. It has to be like 240 or something. So it's like an off-white. But then it's actually going to work. But anyway, I'm putting it at the bottom. I'm also gonna, you're familiar with vignettes, like vignetting around images? That's always a nice thing to do. So then I'm actually gonna make a new solid. I'm gonna do the same color as before, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna put that on top here, call that vignette. I'm gonna call this BG for background. On this, I'm gonna go up to the shape. This used to be a, like I said, a shape layer, but if you have a solid selected or an asset selected, it's actually gonna make a mask. So I'm double clicking here and it gave me a mask. I'm gonna go into the mask settings and into the mask path where it says shape. I'm gonna make this an ellipse, and then I'm gonna subtract here. Why are you popping? Oh, let's see, I've got more than one on. No, shouldn't. Why are you not showing me that? Oh, is it because of the texture? Just doesn't want to work, apparently. Okay, no, it is working. Sorry, I'm just being stupid. I have two of the same colors on top of each other. Of course I'm not going to see it. Now you can see it. So it's doing what I want. It's doing a subtract here, and if I put it on here, that's why I didn't see it, because it's the same color. But I'm going to put this to multiply, so it's going to make everything outside there darker. So if I had add, I could do this. I could even go in and like say, I could move it down here if you wanted to make an image that looked like that, or. But I'm going to have this at subtract because I want to keep everything in the middle unaffected by the multiply. So the multiply is just taking that blue color and making it darker. And I'm going to go to mask feather. I'm going to feather that quite a lot, like 260. I'm also going to go to the opacity and turn it down to like 50. Maybe a bit more, 65, so we can see it. And then I have to have my texture on top of this. Yeah, so now you can see you have like a nice vignette round, which sort of brings the if you have this, it's sort of bland and boring, but this gives you more visual interest, and it sort of drags the viewer's eyes towards the logo because it sort of frames everything in the middle here. Last thing, I'm just gonna put a drop shadow onto the logo because it's kind of cool. I'm gonna make the distance a bit different, slightly bit more on softness, like not like 100% soft because it's gonna blur out everything. I just want this at like 5, so it's not super hard, but it's a bit softer. You could animate the direction here, for instance, if you want to do something cool with that, or I'm just going to do this as a still image to sort of make it stand out a bit. And then where it says shadow color here, I'm actually going to see if I can, not the vignette, I'm going to click this button, which is actually called, it's like soloing something, so it means that you can only see that one layer. So if I solo the vignette, I can, and I solo the texture, I can see only that. But the reason I'm doing it on the background is because I'm still in the logo layer, I still have the effect on. I just want to pick this blue color because I want the shadow to have a blue shadow rather than a completely black one. Because the black shadow is sort of too dark, I think, so I just want it to blend in a bit more. And yeah, is that more interesting to look at than, I don't know, we can, like that. Huge difference, right? It's just making it more interesting. And if you like, this sort of stuff I would do in the beginning of a project, because I would just like lay out the visual style that I'm going to go for. It's like, okay, I'm going to use a paper texture. I'm going to have a drop shadow on the logo. I'm going to have drop shadow on everything. I'm going to have this type of vignette, that kind of thing. And even if you had many scenes here, you would leave the vignette on so that it's sort of, it's framing everything throughout the animation.